A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. It's our first show of the week after the long weekend. Thank you for joining us. My name is Taiwan Jabela. Let's look at some of the headlines in Wednesday's Namibian Sun. Geingob hails SWAPO in birthday message. The ruling party has turned 62 today, and the president, or its president rather, issued a statement in which he chronicled what he terms as the success of the Farmer Liberation Movement. The illegal importation of fuel from Angola is giving Minister of Mines and Energy Tom Alwendo sleepless nights, saying that is robbing the economy of valuable income as Namibians continue to flock to Angola to access cheaper fuel amid rising prices here locally. And finally, a man that escaped, or the body of a man that escaped from a hospital in Rundu was found hanging from a tree. A very, very sad story there, but details of those items and other stories are in Wednesday's edition of Namibian Sun. Tonight on the show, we are welcoming back a regular face, that is Michael Amushelelo, who today, of course, is speaking in a different capacity, which is that he is the commissar for economic development for the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters. He has been in the news lately for a variety of reasons, but primarily his work in the field of particularly labor matters. Thank you very much, Michael, for coming back to the show.
No, it's always a pleasure being here too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell us about I mean, we were, enjoying our Easter long weekend, and you were not resting at all.
Yeah.
Apparently something happened at Katutura KFC.
Yes.
Yeah, what happened there?
So basically what happened there is that we received complaints that Katutura KFC has a new acting branch manager.
Yeah.
Now, this branch manager, apparently she's intimidating all the workers. It's basically, she's like Hitler.
Yeah.
So you can't breathe, you can't do anything,
Yeah.
and then she's literally on your neck. She's been suspending a few people,
Yeah.
and one of the people reached out to us, and I then said, okay, let's fine. Katutura is here nearby. Let me just quickly go and pay the branch manager a visit,
Yeah.
and just engage with her.
Yeah.
So we got there, we asked to see the manager. Her name is Nadia Gibeon, and she refused totally to speak to us. And I asked her on what grounds is she refusing. We're just coming polite. I guess they saw the red beret, and the red beret, I think it scares people or something of the sort.
Yeah.
So in her ignorance, we then showed her wisdom.
Yeah.
And the wisdom was to ensure that they make absolutely no profits for a certain amount of hours, which is about 5 to 6 hours. They had absolutely no sales. Now, white capital monopolies in this country, the only way they can hear is when their profits are dealt with. Now, yesterday we dealt a serious blow to the Katutura KFC branch in Soweto. Now, this is to say that if you're not going to respect workers, if you're not going to treat them with decency, what we're going to do is, number one, we're going to shut down your operations. And by shutting down is calling for a nationwide boycott of this particular outlets who are mistreating individuals. Imagine a person getting paid 2,000 Namibian dollars. They work 8 to 12 hours. Sometimes they have to work weekends, because remember, this is an operation that runs 24/7,
Yes.
7 days a week. There is no non-stop. But these individuals are making millions for this particular company. However, what they take home is a mere 2,000 or 2,300. Now, given on the back of the rising cost of living in this country, this money doesn't even account for how much would you have to pay for a room to rent. This simply means that you would most probably need to co-rent with someone a kabashu, because kabashus these days go for about 2,000 Namibian dollars. If it has electricity, it even goes for a higher amount. So the amount of money that our workers are being paid is peanuts. And on top of that, there is mistreatment of workers. So number one, you're already depriving me of a fair wage. And number two, you are now mistreating me based on the fact that, because the tendency of employers right now is to say that, do you know how many people are in the streets? And they literally show you the door and say, your feet are not glued. You can literally pack your bags and go if you wish to go, because you are replaceable. If you don't feel like working here, you feel you are being mistreated, you are either suspended or you're fired, and then they hire the next person. So this is a result of our country having a crisis, an economic crisis. And this economic crisis is partly brought about our current government, because unfortunately for the past 32 years, we have only been borrowing for consumption, and we have not been borrowing for production. Now, what do I mean by borrowing for consumption as opposed to borrowing for production? What have you been doing for the last past 32 years? We've just been building headquarters and statues, renaming of streets and heroes' acres. These are not things that bring about economic prosperity to your people. Each and every single day, the current regime is talking about prosperity. Prosperity is not brought about you carving out a statue for 100 million. Prosperity is not brought about you building a state house for 600 million. Prosperity is not brought about you building a home affairs building for 1 billion. Prosperity is not brought about you building a party headquarters for 800 million. This money needs to be channeled to say, we've got the best sea that produces some of the best fish. How do we buy fishing vessels so that we can start catching these quotas ourselves? Can you believe it that we have a government that allocates fishing quotas, but it doesn't have a single fleet or vessels to actually catch these quotas themselves? As a result of that, we are now left at the hands and the mercy of the Spaniards and the Russians and the Icelandic guys who have now left in order for them to fish valuable resources in our country.
Yes. No, I think you've done justice to this, to that topic. So, I mean, why do you think people are turning to the likes of yourself, workers, disgruntled workers, turning to people like yourself, especially when you're only a few weeks in your party where you are serving now? Is it because there's a void left by, say, labor inspectors and others? Why do you think they're turning to you?
Well, let's be frank. We've got a system that's called state capture. We only like to speak about the Guptas and all of this, but here in Namibia, we've got some serious state capture. So what we're seeing is that many of these politicians who are currently in cabinet, they are compromised because they have one or other dealings with these entities. Now, as a result of them having dealings with these entities, it becomes difficult for them to seriously tackle these issues. Now, the Ministry of Labor has become a useless office of government, because unfortunately, from the minister himself, Utoni Nuyoma, to the labor commissioners, to the labor inspectors, to the arbitrators, they are all in the pockets of individuals who pay bribes. Now, as a result, workers' issues are never resolved. They are either prolonged, and when they are prolonged, our workers obviously don't have the means to fight these things, and as a result, they end up either accepting the peanuts or they get no payouts and things of that sort. So unfortunately, the people now do not see any confidence. Now, this is a worrisome situation when citizens of a nation lose credibility in institutions that were put there to ensure they are safeguarded in terms of their workers' rights and things of that sort. But workers now feel that they can no longer rely on these institutions, and they've now turned to individuals like ourselves and political parties and other movements in order for us to raise their issues. And the other thing is that the labor unions are also in cahoot with these individuals. Unfortunately, we have received reports of labor unions being paid bribes by the companies in order for them not to obviously negotiate in good faith for the workers that they represent. In fact, they negotiate in favor of the employer. So these issues have then obviously resulted in people losing an interest in actually wanting to deal with the labor ministry and the labor unions in this country.
Yeah. What do you think, because of course you joined NEFF recently, a few days after that we saw you in at Chita Cement in Ashwarongo, you confronted the managers there. As a matter of fact, you got even people arrested there who were allegedly working in the country without proper documentation. Today, your party deputy leader, Kalimbo Ipumbu, issued a statement talking about Namib Mills also. I mean, look, I understand, but where does the legitimacy comes from? I mean, if you show up at a workplace, what must compel anyone to listen to you? Where do you get the legitimacy from? Just to the locus standi, as they say in law?
Okay, so the locus standi comes from our party constitution.
Yeah.
Now, in our party constitution, we have vowed to fight for the workers and the poor masses in this country. Yeah. So that in alone in itself, because remember, this constitution, we handed it over to ECN. Yeah. ECN approved of this constitution. So meaning that they approve of us fighting for workers. So we're not fighting just because for the sake of wanting to fight. Yeah. But that is what we stand for. It's one of our key principles. And we make no negotiations when it comes to this principle. So this issue of employers saying that we have no locus standing in terms of coming to their premises and things of that sort. Well, we would not need to come to your place if your workers were well treated. This is a result of them crying out, and they've continued to cry, but no one seems to be hearing their cries. And now, unfortunately, they finally found a party that is willing to put itself at risk in order to fight for the workers' rights. I mean, the problem is in this country, we have a lot of politicians that say that when you vote me into power, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for you. What we're saying as a party is that you don't need to vote us into power to show you that what we're capable of achieving. We don't even need to be in power to be fighting for workers' rights. Let's assume the next election comes, we don't win any seats. We'll continue doing this because unfortunately, where workers' rights will not be respected and where the poor masses in this country will be not having dignified lives, we will unfortunately have to fight for them. And as you have stated, we went to Chita Cement. As you remember very well, the administrator of Chita Cement had opened a case against us for trespassing. Apparently, we were not supposed to be there. He even denied on camera that apparently there are no illegal immigrants or illegal Chinese working there. But how many were arrested? So, in fact, we still need to deal with him because we have established now that he's a liar. And he's obviously been working in cahoots with the management of Chita Cement, and we'll see how best to deal with it.
Yeah, indeed. Michael, we go for a quick break and then return for the second half of the show. We continue our conversation with Michael Amushelelo of the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters. Now, Michael, I still want to engage you on the issue of that of legitimacy, because we have seen now that you know, and I'm not discounting at all the reality on the ground. I mean, you have uncovered, especially at Chita Cement, you've uncovered what seems to be true now, that indeed people did not have work permits and stuff like that. But, I mean, where will it end? NEF on one hand, AR on one hand, the unregistered Revolutionary Union also budging into workplaces like this. I mean, do we not need a bit of, I don't know what it is, but if everybody can just pop up anywhere, anytime, and demanding things, how will it end?
I mean, what we're saying is that if the labor ministry is not going to do its work, unfortunately, there's a void that needs to be filled. We cannot be paying salaries for labor commissioners, labor ministers, labor inspectors, labor arbitrators, and the whole entire staff at the Ministry of Labor, but labor issues are not resolved. So what are taxpayers paying their money for then? Then, in fact, in actual fact, what we're going to propose in Parliament is perhaps to nullify that ministry and have those funds perhaps moved to SME development in order for young entrepreneurs to be funded so that at least young people can be able to create their own jobs and not rely on this white capital monopoly owned companies in order for them to be hired. But where we get this is also from our name, Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters. We are fighting for the economy of this country. And the economy of this country starts with an individual. If an individual cannot be economically independent, then unfortunately the rest of the country can also not attain that economic independence. Now, unfortunately, during our negotiations as a country, there were three things on the table. The first was freedom, the second was land, and the third was the economy. Now, our freedom fighters just chose freedom. They forgot the land and they forgot the economy. Now, it is up to us as young people to now get back the land and the economy, because the land and the economy was left in whose hands? It was left in the hands of the whites. We just got freedom. Freedom of what? Freedom of association, freedom of press, freedom of talking, freedom of movement, and all of this. But the real vehicles of means of production, they were left in the hands of the minority. Now, the majority, unfortunately, is growing relentless, because 32 years, we still have Namibians who are landless, meaning that this person does not know what a square feet of land means. They have literally 0 square. While we've got whites who own square kilometers. You will drive from Otavia until Tsumeb, you will understand that that farm is just owned by one individual. How can that be correct in a country where we're saying that we should be all equal, we are all Namibians, and we should equally share these resources? Now, these resources, unfortunately, they are not being equally shared. The owners of the companies, they are taking the huge profits, enjoying those profits with their families. The workers that produce these profits, they do not share in these profits. So then where is then the prosperity of an ordinary Namibian? So that is where we get our local standing in terms of why we're doing what we're doing.
How much effort do you guys invest in verifying facts? Some employees are simply disgruntled because maybe they were just lazy at work, or they committed some fraud and they were chased away. And then they know there's Michael who acts very, very fast. How much effort do you put in verifying the allegations that are made against employers?
So what we do is we've got a check system. So if we receive the complaint once, we ignore it. If it comes in over 10 times, then we act on it, because 10 people cannot be crazy enough to just want to say that this particular company is mistreating them. One disgruntled employee, it's understandable. But in the case of Namib Mills, we have over 500 or so disgruntled employees who have approached us, and they've said to us to say that, unfortunately, there are so many mismanagements and mistreatments happening at this company. That's why this afternoon, we paid them a courtesy visit. Or in fact, this morning, we paid them a visit to say, no, we want to engage you and verify whether these statements are true or whether it's not. However, in today's confrontation, we realize that, as per usual, the white capitalists want to take that white arrogance posture. They were there asking us to say, hey, what are you doing here on our property? Na, all of this. We told them, hey, boss, we've got two ways of dealing with things. The first is diplomacy, and the second, we are not called fighters for a reason. So we either take the diplomacy route or we start fighting. So we've given them until Thursday to respond to us and to respond to the allegations that the workers have made. Failure to do so will embark on a nationwide disruption of the workflow at Namib Mills. So they must take this warning very serious. We are not joking. And this is a result of them mistreating workers. It's funny enough today when I was reading their mission, it says that focus on people and all these things. But funny enough, they do not care about the people, perhaps the black workers, because the white managers, when we went there, they were all smiles. But as for the black employees, they were all distangled. So perhaps it's a case of there is certain race that is being favored and a certain race that is not being favored. And if that's the case, unfortunately, our constitution doesn't work that way. And those people or those individuals need to be dealt with.
What is the nature of the allegations at Namib Mills?
The nature of the allegations are, there are quite a lot. Some of the allegations are that employees who have been working for more than 30 years, they are getting a salary of 5,000. These people have not been promoted. These people now work because they've over the years picked up multiple skills. They double, he's the packer, he's the machine operator, he's the forklift driver, he's the whatever the thing that is general worker, but his salary, he gets a mere 4,000. Now the bone of contention is that there is always white people coming in. These people train these white people. They've got no qualifications whatsoever. Tomorrow this person is the supervisor, and this supervisor now starts looking down on these people, insulting them. And these are old people. Some of them I've met, they are 58, some of them they are 59, they are about to go into retirement. Now the other issue is that their retirement fund, they get, imagine working for 35 years, but you're gonna get a 50,000 as your retirement. What do you do with 50,000? You are 60 years old. So there's plenty of issues. Number one, the white managers, they are constantly insulting the people. They are constantly intimidating them. They are constantly victimizing them. And it's a tendency of you either follow what we're saying or we show you the door. Workers are forced to work overtime. And this overtime is not paid on time that these workers are forced to pay. And it's a whole lot. Now, for a company such as Namib Mills that has recently increased its food prices due to whatever reasons they've increased it, they are unable to give their workers a back pay of 9 months as well as a salary increase of 7.5%. This is what these workers are asking for. They're not asking to say, give us the whole profits. No, we are just asking for our back pay that's due to them. But the management is refusing to say, and the offer they put on the table is to say that we can only pay you $2,000 and we can only give you a 3% increase. Now, for a company that has recently hiked its prices up until 25%, to only want to give your employees 3%, that we call absolutely not correct.
Yeah. What are you going to do in a scenario where a company, an employer has a bargaining agreement? The employees that approached you are in a bargaining unit of a particular union, and the employer says, look, again, locus standi, we don't have any agreement with you. We have this agreement with union A or B, and therefore those are the people that we are going to engage. I mean, how will you handle situations like, because it's law that you engage really those that you have an agreement with?
So unfortunately, the Labor Act law in this country has castrated the poor unions. Now, these guys were very careful in crafting this Labor Act, because unfortunately, these guys do not have much power as we think they actually do have. Now, as a result of that, where they are failing in terms of their local standing with the employers and the workers, in that, that's then where we feel that vacuum to say that us, we are just a political party. We are mandated in terms of our constitution. We've got 2 members currently serving in parliament, so meaning that we have a mandate to serve this nation, and also to duly and make sure that the laws in these countries are complied with. That's why we went to Chita Cement, because we saw that immigration laws in this country were not being respected. Labor laws were not being respected. So that is why we went there. Now, if you read the Constitution, you would understand that the Constitution grants you as a citizen certain powers. And these are powers to hold certain companies and institutions accountable. Accountability is what we're doing here. All we're saying is we want to hold these particular companies and institutions accountable. That's it.
Do you think, Michael, then, as we edge towards the closing of this conversation that perhaps, because I must be honest, I was very impressed with the Cheetah Cement issue. And from what you are saying also, it looks like the Katutura KFC branch issues were also quite legitimate. If you look at people made to work extra hours, but there's no evidence that indeed they have been paid for those hours. I understand that. But when you delve into things like, oh, we deserve 7% and not 3%, isn't that too dangerous a space to delve in? Why don't you just confine yourself to things that really amount to blatant exploitation, such as what happened at KFC and Cheetah Cement?
Well, Toivo, I need to address this very well. Now, if no one addresses that, then unfortunately our poor people are going to continue being exploited. Yeah. Now, if you're getting a salary of $1,000 and your boss is offering you a 7.5% salary hike, that simply means it's $75. Yeah. Now, that $75, if that money is paid into your bank account, it does not even amount to the charges that your bank takes. So when employers say they want to give workers 7.5%, we actually say we first need to look at your profitability. How profitable is your company? If your company is profitable, then your workers should also be able to share within this success. That is why when we get into power as a government, we are going to ensure that companies that want to operate in Namibia, they will have what is called a workers' compensation fund, meaning that the profits that the company makes, a certain percentage of it is going to go directly to the workers, because these are the individuals who are making this particular company. So we cannot have a situation where with the exploitation of workers, but the workers benefit nothing. That is why you see rankings like Namibia is one of the saddest countries. How can you not be sad when the salary that you are receiving is not enough to pay your water, it's not enough to pay for electricity, it's not even enough to pay for the place where you are renting? This is the reason why when you come to certain places, the people are distracted. You get poor services. You guys always complain about service in Namibia is poor. How can service in Namibia not be poor if the workers are unhappy? A happy worker is a productive worker. Toivo, I can guarantee you that whenever I'm happy, I'm in a joyous mood, and I also just want to share this happiness with others. But now, here I have the landlord calling me because I owe him for 3 months rent, because our pay cuts were reduced due to this COVID issue. And many of these companies are now using this pretext of COVID in order for them to suppress workers' rights, and also to continue violating them in terms of molesting them by paying them low salaries. So what we're saying is that any company that's operating in Namibia, and you are currently busy molesting our people, we are going to find out, and we are going to show up at your doorsteps, and we are going to ensure that we are dealt with properly. Because we cannot continue a situation where companies continue to make huge profits, and to make matters worse, these profits are shipped out of this country. These profits are not kept in this country. Most of these companies are multinationals. They are either foreign owned or something of the sort.
Yes.
So we cannot allow that exploitation of our human resource as well as our natural resources.
Indeed. Commissar, thank you very much for making time.
It's a pleasure always, Steve.
Yeah, that was Michael Amushelelo. He is the Commissar for Economic Development in the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters, speaking to us about the commotions that they are causing at different workplaces where allegations of worker exploitation have surfaced. Thank you for watching.
They must just treat workers properly. That's it.
Yeah.
We have no issue.
Sure.